When it comes to characters and franchises with multiple cinematic iterations, sometimes the best moments come from the worst movies. In fact, some of the worst films in the superhero genre are as bad as they are specifically because they're just a series of loosely connected scenes. Most comic book movies, however, lie somewhere in the middle. Better than this, but still not quite this. How many times did Hugh Jackman play Wolverine before Fox finally hit it out of the park? Since the mediocre movies grossly outnumber the great ones, it stands to reason that most of our favorite moments probably come from the former rather than from the latter. For example, if given a choice between watching Superman save people and watching Superman pummel people, I take option A over B 9 times out of 10. That's why one of my favorite Superman scenes is the airplane rescue scene from Superman Returns, a movie which was ill-received by comic book fans and the general public alike. Age of Ultron is not my favorite MCU movie, but it has some of my favorite MCU scenes. I still remember how I felt the first time I saw this. But before I get to the scene that I want to highlight here, I just have to say how grateful I am to Nando from Nando V Movies for organizing this, and to all of my favorite YouTubers for playing along. I love the idea of Nando reaching out to all these content creators and all these content creators answering, "Hell yeah, I'm in." Lastly, but especially, I want to thank Nando again for opening up the playlist to the rest of us so that we can participate in the conversation too. That's just awesome, man. Thank you. Alright, my favorite scene in the MCU is actually the payoff to the after-party scene in Age of Ultron that Nando covered in his installment. In the after-party scene, we see each Avenger attempt to lift Mjolnir, and of course Thor's the only one who can. It's such a great standalone scene you don't suspect that it's actually a setup for a future payoff. As a setup, the after-party scene went right under the radar of fanboys like me because, let's face it, seeing the Avengers sit around in their civvies, taking turns trying to lift Mjolnir is a fanboy's wet dream. But while we true believers were distracted by fan service, the uninitiated sitting behind us in the theater learned for the first time that only those who are worthy are able to lift Thor's hammer. But enough about the after-party. Fast forward to just before Vision's creation. It's Avenger versus Avenger since half of them wants to create Vision and the other half doesn't. Thor says fuck it and gives Vision the old 1.21 gigawatt salute, thereby Frankensteining him to life. The Avengers are still torn as to whether this was a good idea or not, and their reasons for doubting that it was aren't crazy. Vision's body was created by Ultron for Ultron, and the software Tony was trying to install into it stood to become a hybrid between Ultron's mind and Jarvis's, and it remained to be seen what the ratio of those two minds would be. So here we are, Vision is floating among them and nobody knows what to expect next. There's a brief discussion in which the Avengers express their doubts about Vision to Vision, and Vision acknowledges those doubts and tries to address them. In so doing, he quickly realizes something that takes most humans an entire lifetime to understand. There are really only two ways to convince someone of something without coercion or manipulation. You can supply them with a sound deductive proof, or you can demonstrate it empirically. Everything else is sophistry. Vision knows there's nothing he can say to convince them because he has no proof, and he's not about to try to trick them into trusting him through some sort of appeal to emotion or authority. He also knows that virtue is the sort of thing that can only be demonstrated empirically through a continued, reliable, habitual pattern of ethical behavior. Saying courageous things doesn't amount to much. All that matters is whether you do courageous things repeatedly and dependably. There are no shortcuts, no rabbit he can pull out of a hat to show everyone in an instant that he's pure and good, no piece of plastic he can pee on to tell us whether he's a friend or foe. Why? Why is there no empirical test of nobility that can tell us once and for all, beyond dispute, whether someone's character is trustworthy or not? Oh well, here's your hammer. Vision literally does, after explaining why there's nothing he can do to convince them, the only fucking thing in the entire universe that he could possibly do to convince them. It's perfect. Anyways, thanks again, Nando, and thank you all for watching.